So I'll be talking about the wonders of the majestic whitetail today. And did I really figure that my love for nature and whitetail deer would come from dragging a downed buck 3 miles in the West Texas brush? No, but that's how it happened. It all started one warm fall evening where I was hunting out in the middle of nowhere. I had probably no one within 20 miles, and I found myself viewing this perfect, majestic buck, and I thought it was a great opportunity to take it, so I did. Little did I know he had another plan. He ended up taking off as soon as I shot at him, and he ran over 1.5 miles away, so I had to search far and wide to find him, walking over 2.5 miles to get to him. And when I finally did, I had realized I'd gone way too far away from the campground and all that, so it was hard to figure out what I was gonna do. But as I was dragging that deer 1.5 miles, 2 miles back to where I was, I realized the beauties that were in nature and hunting and whitetail deer in general, and it really just sparked something within me, and it was something that I've been passionate about ever since, and I've really just enjoyed the hunt and the management of whitetail deer. So nowadays there are around 30 million whitetail deer in all of the world, and this population number has increased from around 1 million dating back to around 100 years ago, and they've been spread around 12 or so countries now, ranging from parts of North America and parts of South America like Peru or Bolivia, or even all the way to Western Europe. So places like Finland and Sweden have all gotten whitetail deer over time. So it's been interesting to see how that population has increased, because a lot of it has been caused by increased numbers of actual reproduction, and they've been able to grow at bigger rates. So it's allowed for the continued increase of the species. So it's been interesting to see that's how that's actually continued. But one thing we do have to discuss is, what do they actually eat? So they are herbivores, so they're not going to eat any meat products or anything like that. So they're going to eat mostly grass, corn, and nuts. So these kind of things are found all around America or around the world. So in the northeast regions of New England, you're going to find more large trees with acorns, but then you're going to have larger plains out in the middle parts of America. So they're always going to have access to food and resources. But one thing that I've noticed throughout personal experiences, deer love dried corn. They consider it more of a delicious dessert thing since it's sweeter for them. And this actually has an impact on the deer, because one of the things that affects their eating habits is their teeth, because after a while their teeth start to erode, and these harder substances that they eat really cause damage and wear on their teeth. So a 10-year-old deer, after you've harvested it, you could take a look and they're pretty much gummed out there. They're gumming down their food to eat, so they have to stick with less hard food resources to be able to continue eating and survive. That's why a lot of them don't actually survive the winter time, is because they can't find more than corn resources that some ranch managers have put out, so they end up dying in the cold. So the antler growth is another interesting subject for the whitetail deer, as only the males grow these antlers, and a lot of it is caused by mineral and carbohydrate consumption as it builds muscle within the actual deer. So it can cause them to grow up and become bigger, and it allows blood flow to go into the antlers and creates this antler velvet surface across it. And in the early months of the spring, that's when they originally drop their antlers, and over a period of around 4 months they grow new ones and they create these velvet antlers, and around 6 months they become fully developed and they create the antlers that you see today. And one of the things that does cause this is they do have available food resources that do allow them to become this size. The minerals and the food are key for this. But one thing we also have to discuss is, why are there so many now? Why are there so many whitetails? There's 30 million now compared to 1 million back over 100 years ago. So a lot of this is due to suburban development. There's been a lot of people deciding to branch out and go out west, as they would say, or go just out in the country. So new developments in neighborhoods have been created to accommodate new people moving to different areas. So it's almost like new life has been started there, and the deer have seen that as an opportunity as well, and they've strayed away from the woodland grounds they typically will be in and have decided to go to these suburban areas to be able to find a new life for themselves, because one thing that they don't have there in these new suburban developments is predators. The people in charge of these areas, or the families in general, have made sure that there aren't predators to disturb them or their families so they can have a peaceful life in these areas, because previously they had been spread out in more of a wild area, so they have been putting measures in place to be able to make sure that their families are safe, as well as the neighborhood. So these deers have seen this as an opportunity because they haven't really been pushing them away, so they can go and just live in these suburban areas and eat plenty of resources, because people will be planting trees, shrubs, grass. These trees will produce fruit and other nuts, so they'll pretty much have a perfectly like fine source of food that they can just sustain themselves on long term. And there is less hunting going on nowadays. Back over 100 years ago, hunting was a very big thing. Like, people were always hunting. There was people bragging about how many like deer they killed in a day. Like, trophy hunting was very valuable. It was seen more as like a luxury, and people really valued it. It was part of their lives. But nowadays it's become more of a taboo subject. Some people don't really want to discuss it as much because the inhumane dispatching of animals sometimes is a difficult issue for people to talk about. So the decrease in hunting has led to an increase in population. But why is it bad that there are so many? And overall population decreases of other animals will be caused by this, because these deer are actually eating all the food resources in certain areas, especially the suburban developments, because there are other animals that rely on these food sources, and if they're not being able to have that access to them, then the deer will eat them all and they'll die off. So this also decreases biodiversity, because it kills lots of different kinds of life in the areas, both animals and plants, because all these plants will be decreased drastically because of how much are being eaten. And then this could cause big die-offs in deer as well, because one term that we do like to discuss within this field is a bully deer. A bully deer is some deer that pretty much, it doesn't serve much of a purpose besides eating food and drinking water, because at a certain age, for a male buck especially, they reach sexual maturity that's past what their normal like lifespan is really required them to do, so they stop mating. So all they do is eat food and kind of hog the resources, and they don't allow other animals or deer to be able to go into those areas. So if they're being the only ones that eat there, then other animals are not going to get the nutrients or food sources that they need, so they're going to die off or not have as much resources to sustain their young. So it's kind of a problem for them, and it's been a problem for a while. But what can we actually do to help this? This is one of the issues that we've been trying to tackle for a long time, but there are some solutions that we can do. We need to keep hunting. Hunting has been a very valuable practice for many years up until this point, and people need to go back to that. Managing the land is one of the most important things that anyone with a hunting background or a ranch manager can do, as they need to be able to sustain their herds so other animals can survive and the deer themselves. So allowing certain hunters or ranch managers to go into the land and take a certain amount of the population every year is key for their survival. And determining that is done by the biologist, which is a person who goes around and actually counts the amount of deer that are in the herd within a ranch or property. And their job pretty much entails them to go in large vehicles or trucks with spotlights at nighttime, and they go and survey the land by counting the number of eyes or deer that they see in a certain pasture, and they can make estimates on how many deer are on the property based on that number. So it allows them to continue to realize how many deer are on the property, how many need to be taken, what kind of deer need to be taken, because the difference in male and females is going to be different just based on how many are seen. So there are different jobs for them to do, and for the ranch managers to hire other hunters to be able to take out these deer, because it allows them to sustain those healthy herds. But what can we do? What can the people that don't hunt do? And what can they also, these other hunters do as well? So we can all just tell them the beauty of nature. Like, why can we not just like spread the awareness of like why this is such a good thing? Like, why are deer such beautiful creatures? Like, we need to be able to raise awareness for these animals, so we can tell the other people that aren't involved about why they are so like majestic, why they also need to be taken care of, because it also affects the ecosystem. And we need to practice safe and humane hunting as well. We don't need to take more than we need. We have certain levels that we've been required to maintain healthy herds with, and if we do that, then we can sustain these healthy limits for the ranch. And just enjoying nature too is one of the greatest things that we could possibly have. It's one of the purest creations that we've been able to have in our lives. And I think sustaining a population like the white-tailed deer is one of the factors that really goes into that. And being able to continue that forever is going to set up ourselves now and for future generations. So just being able to have access to that is key for what we're trying to build here. Thank you.
Cool. 10:45.